two of the main backs I would say that I get the most questions about right now, and are probably the biggest debate for you in your fantasy draft if you're watching. After CMC, Christian McCaffrey goes with the first pick, first running back off the board for most people. Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson are damn near the consensus for the next two backs.
Yeah.
Tyler, let me know which one you like and why.
So for me, honestly, I have Breece Hall as my RB1 overall this season. And I just did that recently just because I think it's really unlikely that Christian McCaffrey repeats. Like, we don't see this stuff happen a lot. So why I like Breece Hall, though, is we saw it last year where he was coming off the torn ACL, and everybody had high hopes for Aaron Rodgers in this offense. It could be really good. And then, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles on like the first play of the game, and all hopes are crushed there. But Breece Hall still produced in fantasy football. He was the RB2 overall in PPR leagues for the season. This was the worst offense in the NFL in terms of scoring. So not only was he coming off a torn ACL, but he also was playing on the worst offense in the NFL, and he still managed to be the RB2 overall in fantasy football. So a guy that I loved coming out of college. I thought he had a very near perfect draft profile, really comparable to Breece Hall, or not Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, not comparable, but close. I thought I just loved him coming out of college. And I think that that's translated to the pros, where year one, we got to see the flashes, and then unfortunately tore his ACL. And then year two, even at coming off that injury, the dreaded ACL was fantastic. So I just think that year three, hopefully he's able to stay healthy, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers is not washed. I don't think he's going to be, but as long as it should be an improved offense, I think that Breece Hall can be the RB1 overall in fantasy.
It's tough for me, man, because like I see all these talent up here. You got CMC, you got Bijan, you got Breece Hall, and I just look at Bijan Robinson, and I'm like, he looks like the most talented back. We were calling him, not us, but the community called him generational. We throw that word around so much. The word generational was thrown around about Bijan Robinson, and obviously in year one, we didn't see that under Arthur Smith. We saw a lot of inconsistency. We saw a lot of Tyler Algier in the backfield. We saw a lot of things we didn't like, and he was going last year as a top 10 pick, as a top 12 pick in a lot of drafts. And I think the excitement was warranted, but he was a rookie. We had to see him on the field. We had to see how the team utilized him. And one of the things that Arthur Smith made sure to do was to limit him and not put him at his full usage. So there's been some changes in Atlanta, and I think positive changes for what Bijan Robinson is going to be. We got Raheem Morris in there. Zach Robinson's now the offensive coordinator coming over from the Rams. A lot to like, and, the touches were inconsistent. They've said that's not going to be an issue this year. They are going to run Bijan Robinson like CMC. And when I think about the potential of what we were hoping for last year versus where he's being drafted this year as the RB3 overall, for me, I think he can blow that out the water. This is one of those seasons where we know he catches the football. Christian McCaffrey's a 3 to 4 catch guy every single week. So if we're getting 300 rush attempts, we're getting 50 to 60 catches in the passing game, we're getting over 350 touches out of Bijan Robinson in a healthy season. To me, if he's averaging over damn near 5 yards a carry, which I expect Bijan to be, he's able to get into the end zone more. They're trusting him. This could be a monster season for Bijan Robinson. I have him firmly ranked as my number one player off the board right now. I think it's worthy. And, I hear a lot of people talk about Christian McCaffrey, same thing you said. That's tough for a 29-year-old running back to produce back-to-back RB1 seasons. And the Niners are putting a lot of passing weapons around Brock Purdy because they got to pay him. I think we see a little bit more in the passing game this year. So Bijan Robinson is my number one running back and number one player on the board this year.
So, I mean, I don't hate it. The only thing is with Bijan is Tyler Algier potentially. Like, I still think that there could be a role, even though I don't necessarily like Tyler Algier, but he's been somewhat productive over the past 2 seasons. And I don't want to say that it's making me not like Bijan, because I still do really like Bijan, obviously. He's my 3 overall. But I do think that there maybe steals a little bit of red zone work. Potentially. Hey, I gotta say something.
On, man.
I mean, I do like Bijan, but when I'm comparing him to Breece Hall, what I will say is Breece Hall has not only been very good for fantasy football, but he's also been very good in real life football. Like there's two stats that I like to look at for real life football, and that's missed tackles forced per attempt and explosive play percentage. And Breece Hall, his first year in the league, was the only running back who was inside the top 10 for both those. And then you go back and look at last year. Last year, he was 14th, but also, once again, coming off the ACL and missed tackles forced, but he was top 10. I want to say I want to look this up exactly so I got the right one.
Yeah,
But he
do
was
that. Do
explosive.
that.
Yeah, I don't want to be lying here or anything.
Sometimes you got to get your facts right. This ain't a political debate. This ain't the presidential debate, but we got to get our facts straight. The only thing I can say about Bijan and those red zone looks that you're talking about with Tyler Algier is if the coaching staff wasn't like, yo, we are going to use this guy exclusively, it kind of gives me like CMC and Eli Mitchell vibes, right? Like Eli Mitchell was in there and everybody at some point thought, oh, he's going to take away work. And the Niners just said, nah, F that. We about to just use CMC the whole time. I feel like that's what they're setting up Bijan for a heavy workload to give the guy all the work they can handle. And plus, you get Kirk Cousins in there to lead and direct that offense. How do you take care of your quarterback who's coming off of an injury? You run the football. You put it in your talent's hands. Bijan going to be fine, man. You said one thing about Breece Hall, though, man. You said one thing about Breece Hall. A lot of the passing game work, we saw that. A lot of that was forced stuff down, late in the season. It was from Trevor Siemian. He was getting a lot of checkdowns, around 10 targets a game there towards the end of the season. That don't concern you at all, especially when they brought in a guy in Braylon Allen, who they've been hyping up in the passing game, hyping up pass catching work this offseason from Braylon Allen.
You say chill out on Tyler Algier, but you're going to bring up Braylon Allen. So no, because I look at kind of Bijan Robinson in the same sense too, is like you just have two quarterbacks who Aaron Rodgers could kind of have like escapability when he was younger, but really these two guys are coming off Achilles tears. I think that they're going to be statues in the pocket. I really don't think that they're going to move around at all. So yes, he's kind of being, you could say, maybe fed by Trevor Siemian, but when you have just good receiving backs, like when Breece Hall is not just a guy that, you run out there in a little swing pass and you throw him the ball. He can also run routes. Like he's a good route runner along with Bijan. Like these are two just good, pure receiving backs and have a 3-down skill set. So later in the season, yeah, you did see him catch the ball a lot, but I also just think that's the player he is. We've seen that even going back his rookie season, he was catching the ball a lot before he got hurt. So, and it's kind of nice because later, when you have guys that tear their ACL, typically what happens is they get stronger as the season progresses, right? And for the stretch for your fantasy football championships, 29 points, 2 points, but that's when they got blown out 30-0 by Miami. But 43 points, 27 points, 29 points. Like just elite ceiling out of those games. 4 of those 5 games finishes the top 3 back in 4 of them. So a top 3 back on a weekly finish. This is what you get with Breece Hall. I think it's sky high for him. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy this year, but I would not be shocked if he's the number 2 target in this offense behind Garrett Wilson. So I'm not worried about the receiving upside at all.
Well, I'll say this. I do like Breece Hall. I mean, I think overall he's a really good, talented back. He's one of the best that the game has to offer right now. And if I wasn't looking at Bijan, I'd be taking a closer look at Breece Hall.
Yeah.
One area I do have like a slight concern is just Aaron Rodgers doesn't, he's not like a check down monster. He will check it down, but I don't think he's going to get near the volume of pass catching work. But if he can prove himself more as a runner this year, if he's hitting more like 1,400 yards rushing, I think he was just under 1,000 yards rushing last year. If he can improve himself as a runner this year, I think I would find a lot more value and a lot more upside and hope that Breece could be the RB1. So I think he's talented for all, you know what I'm saying? Like Breece is a talented back, and I don't doubt it. But I just look at the upside with Bijan Robinson, and late in the season, they have a nice little fantasy playoff schedule. You got Minnesota, you got the Raiders, you got the Giants, and you got the Commanders there down the stretch for fantasy. I'm like, Bijan, to me, bro, that might be prime time, especially as the weather gets a little cloudy, towards the end of the season.